What's up guys, Will here. Welcome to my channel. If you have found this video because you were either thinking about buying a 981 GT4 or you're just interested in learning more about it, then I have great news for you because that's what this video is all about. In today's video, I'm going to take you through what I think you need to be looking for if you buy one of these cars specifically. I'm going to take you through some tips for getting the most out of the car and living with the lightweight carbon bucket seats if indeed you come across an example that has it. And then I'm going to share with you exactly why I think that these cars are such a better buy than air-cooled Porsches. And yes, for you guys that have been following along, I'm gonna criticize air-cooled just a little bit. Before we get into that though, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to this channel. If you love Porsche content, click the subscribe button and hit the bell so you're notified every time I publish new content. Okay guys, here it is, the debut of this Porsche Cayman 981 GT4. It's long overdue. I've been busy with quite a few things on the channel if you've been following along. Have a lot up in the air, and I will be sharing some videos about what's been going on. All good, all Porsche. But here we are. I've had a lot of requests for a video on this car. I've been sharing it on social media just because I think it's such a gorgeous car. It photographs so well. The GT4, the 981 GT4 I should say, was manufactured from 2014 to 2016. It is the first generation of GT4. And as such, some articles that I've read, some Facebook posts and so forth, they say that this first generation is more analog, a little more edgy, a little rawer than the 718 GT4, excuse me. I can't speak to that from personal experience, but because it is reputed to be the more analog, rawer version, and because it is the first generation, I think, and I'm not alone in this, that this 981 GT4 generation will at the very least hold its value, if not appreciate. In fact, there's an article on Elferspot that talks about how the 981 GT4 is a good investment in 2023. Porsche gave it a 3.8 liter engine taken from the 991 Carrera S. It is detuned from the motor that appears in that car. Car does have a 6-speed manual naturally. Now my particular example here, I was so excited to have found this car. It is in the exact spec that I was looking for. I could not believe it, and frankly I found it very, very quickly too. A little bit about the car as stated on the window sticker. Sapphire blue metallic, which if you guys saw my Cayman S video, you know that's my favorite color on these cars. So I was just, again, tickled to find it. It's sapphire blue metallic. The original sticker on this car was 101,000. It's got the extended range fuel tank, 2-zone air conditioning, the Porsche Light system, Sport Chrono, and the silly app that I would never download. I'm sure it's out of date now anyway, but a lot of guys that I've read reviews on the app said it's awful. Car has black wing supports, leather interior package, lightweight bucket seats that I'm going to get into throughout this video because I really do think those seats are an essential option to get on one of these and one of the defining features that this car has to offer. And then finally, it's got the PCM, or the Porsche Communication Management Head Unit. While simple and expected for a car of this generation, I've just found that head unit to be not only entertaining to look at and just a nice departure from what I've gotten in my air-cooled cars, and it also functions very well. So I want to now talk about something that may shock you guys if you've been following my journey, but I want to talk to you about the comparison of this GT4 to the air-cooled experience, specifically the value that you get for the amount of money that that these cars deliver as compared to the air-cooled experience. Now, certainly I'm going to give you a disclaimer. I totally understand that they're two different things, and I understand too that at this stage of the game, many of these air-cooled cars that are going for stupid money are indeed really collector's items instead of drivers. I know a lot of guys, myself included, love to drive them, but you're just talking about getting into something that is not just about the mechanical value delivered, but something else. So I sold my 69T hot rod on Bring a Trailer. I was so excited about the result. I'm also very excited. The gentleman who helped me sell that car on Bring a Trailer is in touch with the buyer, and I'm just so excited that the buyer, he's tickled to death with the car. I put a lot of soul, time, energy into that build, and so I'm really glad that he's enjoying it. So when I got the proceeds from that auction, I just started to think through, what did I want to do next? And I knew I was getting a little tired of air-cooled, just from the perspective of the constant maintenance, and really I have experienced most of the generations that air-cooled 911s at least have to offer. And I started looking around and I saw that for roughly 2/3 of what I sold that car for, I could get into a 981 GT4. And I knew that I loved the Cayman I had, and I really wanted to experience a GT car. So I jumped on this, and I just gotta say, these water-cooled cars, specifically this GT4, but also this 991 over here, I'll do a video on this car in the next few weeks. But these cars they're delivering so much more value for the money. They're just nicer. The fit and finish is there. The comfort is there. And again, I get that, air-cooled's not about that, but that's part of the reason that I am shifting at least my interest at this stage over to these water-cooled cars. Now, if you know me, then you know I've been called fickle. I prefer to call it a seeking of a variety of experiences, but this too shall pass. Who knows what I'll get into after I get through this phase. But for now, sorry, air-cooled guys, this is where my interest lies. Now, of course, sidebar real quick, this channel will continue to be about air-cooled Porsche ownership, and I'm excited to expand the nature of the content into water-cooled. So I guess in summary for what I'm trying to say is, I just feel like for the money, you're just getting so much more car. In terms of the purchase experience of this car, this particular GT4, I bought this from a Porsche dealership. I want to give a shout out to Porsche of Inglewood. I'd also like to give a shout out to the rep I dealt with, a guy by the name of Gene Beltran. Very helpful. It was quite a process to attain this car. It was very popular, apparently. As soon as they got it in inventory, a lot of the reps were working hard to try to sell it, and so Gene was very helpful in making sure that I got the car. I found this car on Auto Trader, and I came across the ad right after it had been listed, and it didn't even have pictures of the car. What got me super intrigued was the little dot that showed the exterior color showed blue, and I knew right out of the gate that was a car I wanted to chase. I requested information, didn't hear back, requested information again, and ended up negotiating on the car even before I saw a picture. A little bit about this and what I think, by the way, you should be looking for if you're looking to get into a 981 GT4 is the following. And this is what I started to discover about this example. This car is a one owner, zero over rev example. It only had 7,700 miles on it when I came across it. The car is a CPO car, which for me, again, coming out of air-cooled, is an immense value. So they knew the customer, they knew his ownership tendencies, and they took this car on trade when his new allocation came in. So if you are looking for one of these, and I'm not going to get into the whole debate on, do you want a museum piece versus do you want something that's been tracked? Do you mind that? I think we'll talk about that in a future video. But for me, I wanted something that was effectively a new car, and that's what this is. Right after the car showed up on the transport, and along those lines, by the way, I had the best shipping experience I've ever had. The guy that delivered this car, the truck was clean, and he, in fact, and I think he was telling me the truth, he travels the country with this high-end truck, and he has delivered cars to celebrities, Jay-Z, Beyonce. Anyway, I digress. Along those lines, I'd like to give a shout out to a dude by the name of Christian. I'm gonna put his info in the description below. He is the shipping broker that helped me with that. I probably used him 7 times to ship cars, and so if you're looking for anybody to help you, that's the guy I would recommend. So car showed up, absolutely tickled to death. This car exceeded expectations. And if you guys are compulsive purchasers, you just love that. And so after the car arrived, I just so happened to have a trip planned up into the mountains to dry run some routes that some friends and I put together for a rally we hosted. And instead of taking one of my driver quality air-cooled cars, I ended up taking this GT4 into the mountains. And so I promptly put 1,100 miles on the car, twisties, highway, all that good stuff. Of course, it just performed flawlessly. And I'll get into the driving characteristics in that section of the video. We're going to jump into that in a moment. But, it was kind of one of these things where, I feel like I depreciated it right out of the gate, but man, I really experienced what it's like to put this car through its paces. As soon as I got home, the car was so dirty. It was rainy up there, and sticks were in the road, and thankfully there was no damage to the paint, but I promptly detailed the hell out of it and took it to my PPF shop. I have had this entire car PPF'd. I do not think I'll ever see that money back, but I am excited to drive the car worry-free. So let's jump inside really quickly. I want to show you what that looks like and mention a couple of changes I've made. Very subtle. I talked to you about these carbon buckets. For me, I was so excited that these buckets, that this was an example with buckets. There are what they call sofa seats, which are more comfort oriented, but I just think these seats are, God, they really bring the interior alive. A couple things I've done. I want to give a shout out to a company by the name of P1 Designs. P1 Designs is owned by a woman by the name of Kim. I'll put her information down in the description. They make these centers, which come in memory foam and a number of different cushion types, as well as a number of different fabric types. And so she was so nice to help me with this. I just needed a little bit more padding. Something else I'll point out are these bolster protectors. I need to get that, I guess, tightened a little bit, but this is made by a company called Edgard. I'll talk about this in the driving segment, but it's really easy to ruin those bolsters getting in and out of there. And then finally, something else I did was I put a spacer. It's called Designs by Jacob makes it, but it tilts the seat back just a little bit. So I'll do a whole video on making these carbon buckets more comfortable. That'll be coming down in the next few weeks. So if you have a GT4, you're looking to get into one and you want the carbon buckets, but you're uncertain about the comfort, hopefully that video will help you. So let's now jump into the driving portion of this video. Okay, I've already climbed into the cabin here, and the purpose of these types of videos that I do is I'm trying to accomplish two things. I'm trying to help owners or potential owners understand, what they're in for if they purchase one of these cars. And then, also just for like the casual viewers who are Porsche fans but might not be interested in buying a GT4 or really anything like this, I like to give you guys a sense for like literally the tangible experience of getting into a car and driving it. So I went ahead and climbed into the carbon bucket here. For me, this is one of the like really defining features, aspects of this 981 GT4. As I just said, I think that they're essential, non-negotiable. That said, they are not exactly easy to live with. So I want to demonstrate how I get in and out of them, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a trick for making that a lot easier. So you'll notice, first of all, I have slid this seat all the way back. That is going to be key to getting in and out of the car. So, there's a little bit of like acrobatics involved with this process. And so if you're not exactly athletic, or you're not in the mood to, or you're not somebody who wants to have to climb over the bolster to get in and out, you want to think twice about buying this car. So here you go. I'm trying to avoid getting on the bolster. I want to drag my ass over it instead of across it. So there you go. Not that big of a deal. If you're on a weekend-long trip and you're getting in and out, I will say this, it starts to get a little tedious, but totally worth it in my view. So let me show you getting back in the car. Foot in the footwell. Oh, step over. And then slide into the desired seating position. So one other thing that I'll tell you about these seats before I get underway, when I bought the car and had it shipped here, I had never sat in carbon buckets before. Candidly, I'm a little bit of a seat OCD weirdo. My buddy calls me Princess of the Pea. So it was a huge gamble for me to buy one of these cars without testing out the carbon fiber buckets. Car showed up, I got into it, man. I was like, uh-oh. I drove it for 30 minutes, and honestly, my back started hurting, and my thigh started hurting, and I just was kind of panicking. I started to look online for the seat modification solutions or ways to make these carbon fiber buckets more comfortable, and I found a few, and like I said, I'll do a video on those specific mods here in the next couple of weeks. But I told you earlier, I jumped into the car and went on a road trip, and within 3 hours, I was dying. And I was thinking, man, first of all, I don't know, I was maybe like 200 miles into the trip, and I was dying because I was thinking, man, I got a whole weekend ahead of me. And then I found the perfect seating position. And so that is the key. Like initially, I was questioning Porsche's judgment. Like, what were these guys thinking with this seating position? But then I found the exact correct seating position, and that really improved the situation. So let us now get underway, and I'll talk to you a little bit about the driving experience. I'm not as good as maybe many of the other car reviewers out there. I don't have any Top Gear in me, unfortunately, but you know, we'll do the best we can. First thing you notice when you start this car up is that it sounds very mechanical. I don't know if that's because, you know, the GT department got their hands on it and did some things to it. You know, it's not a special motor like the GT3 has. I have driven a GT3 and a GT3 RS, and they sound a lot more mechanical than this car does. But when you get in and you listen to the motor running, you know that there's just a little bit of an edge to it. And that's how I would describe the car overall. It's got an edge. It feels a little aggressive. It's sharp. You know you're in something that is definitely way different than the Cayman S I had. So one little complaint I'm going to tell you guys about is this stupid e-brake. So the e-brake handle, the switch is down here, and you press up on it to engage it. You pull down on it to disengage it. I mean, clearly they couldn't put an e-brake here because of the design, but it's just a little bit annoying. It took me a while to get used to it. I'm there now. So let us now get underway. Something I wanted to ask you guys about, you know, while we creep out of this neighborhood. I just scraped the lip a little bit. No big deal. It's designed to get scraped. I want to know if you think that the 981 GT4 is the poor man's GT3. I frankly think it's neither here nor there because I love this car. You'll find that, you know, when this car is cold, you know, it kind of hesitates and bucks just a tad. And bucks is an overstatement, but that's not uncommon. I mean, I drove my 991 this morning, and it does the same thing. I guess it has to do with the cold map or whatever it is. But you know, once the car gets warmed up, it's fantastic. I generally don't rev it out or really don't get on it until the oil gets up to temp and the coolant gets warm. So I think I'll just take it easy right here. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this cushion while we're, you know, creeping out of the neighborhood. I'm starting to get used to it. So I ordered the memory foam version of these cushions, and initially, and again, I'm Princess in the P with my seating positions. Initially, when I sat in it, I thought it made me a little too high in the car. It was weird. I felt like my head was touching the ceiling. But I'm starting to get used to it. Now I want to again plug Kim with P1 Designs. She has been very accommodating and eager to help, and so I texted her, or excuse me, emailed her about this little perceived problem, and she said gave me a couple suggestions for modifying, and then, you know, said she'd be happy to take them back and adjust them. So I mean, high level of customer service. But I'm getting used to it, and I do find the memory foam to be softer than the factory option. You know, what's cool about the factory option is it's Alcantara, which matches the rest of the cabin. But that said, I like this houndstooth, and I like the little blue flecks in it. All right, so we're starting to get warm here. I will say this. So the power on this car is more than adequate for me. I have taken some heat from some of you guys out there who know that I sold a 997.1 turbo that I had a few years back because it was frankly too fast. It was just too fast to use responsibly on the public streets, and so I felt like I couldn't get the most out of the car without breaking the law. So some of you guys have been like, well, you bought a GT4, isn't that going to be the same experience? I would say absolutely not. This car can be wrung out. You can have fun in this car on public roads without being irresponsible and stupid. There's a Savage Geese video about this about the 981 GT4. Those guys do a fantastic job, by the way. But they say that you're going to get, like, you know, driver blue balls or something, meaning that you can't get the most out of the car, and you're going to constantly want to get the most out of the car on public roads, but you just can't. I respectfully disagree. I have had a great time in the past, I don't know, 1,800 miles that I've put on this car. When I was carving the twisties, man, and I'll get into this in a moment, the suspension is just so good. Car has the GT3 front suspension, which is different than the Spider, by the way. A lot of people think the Spider is a the 981 Spider is a carbon copy of this. It's not. To drive this car on public streets, I think that you can have fun, and I enjoy driving spiritedly. So if you're thinking about buying one of these cars and you're thinking that you can really only enjoy it on the track, I would say from my personal experience, that's just not the case. Looking around the cabin, the fit and finish is so nice. The 981 Cayman S I had, I mean, in theory, it's the same car inside, but that car did have a few rattles in it. This car at 9,200 miles has not developed any like rattles and squeaks. It's just, it feels very substantial. It's well put together. And for me at this price point, you know, I value that. And, you know, compared to air-cooled, I value that. Air-cooled is what it is. But what's nice about this car is it just feels tight, well executed, and the interior reflects like what I would hope to have in a modern Porsche. I touched on this too, man. The Alcantara is just, it elevates the experience in the cabin, which again just makes me really treasure the opportunity to own this car. Touching on the gear lever and just the overall experience of shifting, I'll start with the clutch. Car has a very heavy clutch, and I like that. The 991.2 that I have, a criticism I would share with you is that clutch is way too light. I mean, I'm still struggling 2,000 miles later to really nail that engagement point, especially first to second. And I think part of it is because that clutch is so light. This clutch is heavy. It feels substantial. You know, it will make you tired a little bit of shifting, you know, after 1,000 miles or whatever. Like by the time I got home from that road trip I keep talking about, I was ready to get out of the car. But overall, if you like a heavy clutch, this is the right car for you. Really the highlight is the shifting action. This shifter is so short, so well done. I would submit to you it's the best 911 manual gear shifter or gearbox that I've had the opportunity to shift. I'm gonna say this, man, it's time for sport mode. Sport mode gives you rev matching, all right? And I feel like I'm cheating on my air-cooled brethren in a couple of ways. So first of all, obviously, I'm kind of getting out of my complete fanaticism for it. But secondly, this rev match, I run rev match all the time. It is amazing software. So when you downshift, you don't need to blip, and it just matches the engine speed exactly. My 991.2 has that, this GT4 has that, and I get stuck in the trap of using it over and over and over. I find it to be very engaging. Of course, you can turn it off if you want and blip on your own. I mean, maybe I'm a cheater, maybe I'm not. I just think it's really cool technology. Frankly, one of the biggest highlights of driving this car is when you have the sport exhaust on. I think it sounds so good. I think the only way that it would sound better, let me rev it out. The only way that it could sound better is if I was driving a Spider. It has the same sport exhaust on it, and I had the opportunity to drive my friend's Spider once. Clearly with no top, you can hear it so much better. But I don't know, if you like a pop and a crackle, this is a killer exhaust, and it's really a bonus. I think all GT4s come with it, and I love it. Last thing I'm going to touch on is the handling. The thing is so precise. I think it has to do with the GT3 front suspension, as well as the overall chassis balance with having the engine in the middle, a true 50-50 weight distribution across the front and back of the car. So the whole package comes together and just creates this sense of confidence. I mean, when I was driving in the mountains, like, the car went exactly where I wanted it to go. The weak link there was the driver, as is usually the case. The car is way more capable than I was able to push it. I don't know what the grip threshold is, but in no way, shape, or form did I get anywhere near it. And I pushed the car hard into like switchbacks and really sharp curves. And that's it for the condensed GT4 driving impressions video. Please keep your eyes peeled over the next couple weeks. I have some information, or I have some pretty cool topics coming up. Sorting my new to me 95 993, 5 reasons I'm selling my 1976 mid-year 911, and then I've got the 991.2 video coming up. So if you're not already a subscriber, please do subscribe if you want to be notified when I publish those videos. And if you're still with me, I appreciate you sticking around. I hope to see you next time.